Good evening. I'd like to welcome everyone to tonight's council meeting. Would you please join us in the Pledge of Allegiance?
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Call the meeting to order and open the roll call.
Goodell.
Here.
Slater.
Here.
Rusher.
Here.
Hader.
Here. We need a motion to approve the agenda as printed.
Move to approve.
Second. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed. Then we need a motion to approve the minutes of the February 4th, 2013 regular council meeting, the February 4th, 2013 budget planning meeting, and the February 5th, 2013 budget planning meeting.
So moved. Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed. Under communications, anything from the public in attendance this evening? If not, Clint, people service, please.
Well, construction's still going on and I think they should be, hopefully, I talked to Colin today, hopefully the painters are gonna be in this next week. They'll finish a little touch-up sandblasting, some repairs down in the bottom of the clarifier they did. And then they'll be starting, hopefully painting. We did have a couple main breaks. We had one up by your shop up there. It was an 8-inch, and actually when we got it shut off, it was less than an hour. It was fixed and back online, so that was one of the ones that went good. And then we had another one on South 3rd Street. I think that's about our third or fourth one on that stretch, so that might be something down the road to look at for that area. But just
That old sand cast plant?
yeah, it is. Yep. And like I said, and it was all on that one 3rd Street north. You had one on the north side, and the other three were almost right down from each other there. So that, like I said, something down the road to look at for that. Other than that, we're getting some pumps rebuilt, some bearings replaced out at the wastewater plant. We got 2 of the blowers back online, so but, it's kind of quiet, but nothing wrong with that either. So, questions, comments, or
We've got a picture here, kind of a rendition. Candace, can you see that at all or not? Too small. I know there's a lot of people commenting on the water plant and stuff, what's going on. Could you just explain the first building? That's everybody's
the
questions
biggest,
are. What is the big building there?
concrete
Yeah.
precast, or not precast, but concrete structure is a chlorine contact tank, which that'll actually be part of the storage they'll remove from underground, since they'll be out of the floodplain, so that'll be above ground, and that's the way the engineers designed it, and it'll be in there, and that's where the chlorine will come just prior to going out into the system. And that's what it is, just a big above ground storage is what it is. So, and then there's probably we'll be seeing here the next over by the slurry tank will be a lot of the footings and everything is in, part of it in for the plate press building. That'll be the next structure going up in that. So we'll be seeing a few things here pretty quick. So.
I know it's hard to tell for the people that are looking at this and stuff, but it is going to be a pretty building.
Yeah, it is, and they'll.
It's like a brick facade on it and everything and stuff with
Yeah,
the British color kind of match the old plant and everything. So there's our pictures of it here with drawings and stuff anyway here in the office. If someone would like to stop in and see it and get a closer view anyway, but it'll be very attractive when it's all done and stuff down there. So
Yep, it will be. So. Okay.
no other problems on anyway, Clint?
Nope.
When any anticipation of back online on the other part of the plant, the first part?
Let's see, Colin was hoping, I think they're still waiting on, I thought they were in the troughs for the filter backwash system, but he said we can bring that back online once the troughs are in. And the scrubbers, they'll actually float those down through the media somehow. He said it's pretty common practice what they do, but we're hoping the second week of March, somewhere in there.
Not too far then.
Knock on wood. Of course, they're still kind of waiting on some stuff from the engineer.
The cones all repaired, everything except for the...
Yeah, they've just got a little
together
touch-up
and stuff.
sandblasting to do, clean up, and then they'll be in ready to paint. And then I think all the walls and everything And I think once they get going on that, that won't take them, I think maybe 2 to 3 days to do that. And then, of course, the inside, the clarifier and the well side, that has to cure for that paint 7 days prior to, before any water goes back into it, so. Keeping our fingers crossed, so.
Well, looks like things are progressing, There are quite a few people down there for vehicles working and stuff.
Yep.
Quite a bit of activity.
Busy place, so.
Good.
So, okay,
Wonderful.
thank you.
Thank you, Clint. On our new business, for our fiscal year 2000, 2011, and 2012, we have Tim McCartney here for their annual audit review.
Thank you for taking a few minutes to go through your audit report with me tonight. I think everybody has a copy that was sent out with their packets. I just made some notes, some highlights that we can go through, and I'm not necessarily going to have you flip through the book. So, but if you have any questions that you want to cover, we can try to take care of those too. The first thing I want to point out is that the responsibility for presenting the financial statements is the management here at the city. It's their responsibility to put the financial statements together, and our responsibility is to issue our opinion as to whether or not they're completed fairly in accordance with your chosen method of accounting. The city does use the cash receipts and disbursements method of accounting, which is acceptable for cities in Iowa. And with that kind of as a base knowledge, we did issue unqualified opinions on the governmental activities, the business type activities, each major fund, and the aggregate information contained in the financial statements, the other aggregate information. And that is really what you hope for when you go out for an audit, is unqualified opinions. You did also have supplementary information contained in your financial statements. First of all, I would mention that you had the schedule of expenditures of federal awards. You were subject to a single audit because you had over the limit, which is $500,000 in federal awards expended during the year. And that requires additional audit testing. For the year, the city had 2 major federal programs, one of which was it was funded under HUD, and that was the money received for the FRIT cleanup, the common cleanup. And then the other was the airport T-hanger project was the other major program during the year. And we looked at the compliance areas for those 2 particular programs and tested for compliance, and also tested the controls over those programs. And in both of those cases, no non-compliance was noted. Just to recap then, the receipts and disbursements for the year overall for the city, total receipts for the year were $8,958,000, and I'm just going to round. Total disbursements for the year were $10,409,000, leaving you with a decrease in cash during the year of $1,451,000. Now that would generally get you excited, but you did work on many capital projects during the year, so that the money came in the previous fiscal year, and it was spent down during the year ended June 30, 2012. I wanted to point out that the city's long-term debt from 2011 to 2012 did decrease from approximately $12.5 million to $11,774,000. And no non-compliance was noted with any of the debt issuances for the city. And then I also wanted to point out in the back of your book the 2 reports that are included. Again, we talked about the single audit compliance areas, but you also have internal controls over the financial statements themselves. We did, again, report on a lack of segregation of duties as an internal control issue. And again, that's just mainly because of the size of office staff that you have. We don't necessarily think it would make sense to hire additional staff to get a proper segregation of duties, but we want to point out that from time to time, maybe only one person is in the office, and so therefore you do have an issue, and that just really puts a burden on the council to ask questions when you're given monthly reports and that type of information. And then the last thing I wanted to point out is over some compliance areas that are related to the financial statements themselves. We did notice that the budget was overexpended during the year in one functional area. We would just recommend that that in the future, if that was the case, that you amend your budget. I know you had one amendment during the year, but there's really no limit on the number of amendments that would that are allowed if you meet the code requirements. And then the other thing is that there were some deficit fund balances noted as of the end of the year for I think there was 4 funds at the end of the year, and I know a lot of that has to do with timing as to when your receipts are collected. We would just point out to get those funds in a proper, sound financial position. Possibly you would look at maybe transfers or one way or another to take care of getting rid of those deficit balances. Then I did pass out tonight just an audit presentation, and that's got some graphs that cover the total receipts and the total disbursements. And again, I'll let you guys look at that at your leisure. But one thing I wanted to review with you is a letter found on pages 1 and 2, and these are required disclosures that we are to have with those charged with governance, and that's what the city council would be considered. And basically, it's our responsibility related to the financial statements, which we already covered. The plan, scope, and timing of the audit, we discussed that or relayed that to you when we did the initial arrangement letter with the city. Any significant audit findings, again, I think anything that would be identified as a significant audit finding, we would have covered through whether it's the internal control issue that we discussed or the compliance issues we discussed. We did not encounter any particular difficulties in performing the audit. I would mention that if you look at your schedule of expenditures of federal awards, you'd notice that it says in there that, and it is expenditures, that you expended $735,000 under the FRIT cleanup project. Well, that's the money that came in during the year, but you made the final payment to Humboldt County Development, which wasn't $735,000. But in the government's eyes, when you receive it, that's when HUD said it was expended. So you met all the requirements, and so that's so that wouldn't necessarily line up with when the checks were written. We did not have any disagreements with management that I'm aware of, and we did receive a signed management representation letter accepting responsibility for the financial statements. So if there is any questions, I'd be happy to try to cover those with you, or at any time we're available to try to answer any questions that you would have. And Gloria knows how to get a hold of us. Again, I appreciate your time, and we will be filing the appropriate audit reports with the state auditor's office. And because you are subject to the single audit requirement for the year, we will also be submitting or assisting the city in submitting their data collection form to the Federal Audit Clearinghouse. So those 2 things will be taken care of in the next 30 days. So.
Anybody have any questions?
No.
Jim?
I don't think so.
Jim, thank you very much.
Thank you.
Very good. We're open for another year then.
Good
All right. Next, we've got WHKS with us this evening, so we're going to discuss design plans for the Sumner Avenue Bridge.
Thank you, Walter. Yeah, my name is Stan Stallsmith. I'm with WHKS and Company, and I was here a couple of years ago when we were looking at this bridge. Just trying to get it started, but I've got a copy of my presentation here for each of you to kind of go through too. I appreciate the opportunity to come back, and
This is a good thing that you're here for now.
yes, now that we finally have
Moving
money for it.
ahead.
Here's a couple extra ones too. And the main reason that Aaron asked me to come back tonight was to talk about aesthetics for the bridge, but I thought I'd take the opportunity to give you a little bit of a update of where the project is now and how it got to this point too. So hopefully I can do this from here. And it works, good. Okay, so I can stay here and work through the presentation this way. So the topics I'd like to talk about are the bridge facts, which are the existing bridge and the proposed bridge. and then talk a little bit about the project history and where it's going. And then the majority of the presentation will be about aesthetics. And then we'll talk about the estimated cost for the aesthetics. And then I'll have time at the end for questions and answers. Now, hopefully I can go through this fairly quickly. I know Aaron, we tried to keep it at about 15 minutes, and I practiced a couple times and it went more like 20. So I'm sorry if I go long. I'll try to go through them quickly, though. A lot of it's just pictures. And I feel free to answer questions as we go through it too, or ask questions as we go through it. I hate for somebody to forget a question if they're holding it till the end. So basically, we talk about the bridge facts. The existing bridge is a 3-span, earth-filled concrete spandrel arch. It was built in the early 20s. It's about 240 feet long. There's been a couple of repair projects done on it. The first one in '69 where they moved the sidewalk to the outside of the north side of the bridge, and then another repair project done in 1981. Currently, the bridge is posted for 10 tons, and that is based on the condition of the, basically on the condition of the walls near the piers. They're not in very good shape, and so we've limited it to 10-ton vehicles. The estimated daily traffic is about a little over 4,000 vehicles a day. Now to go into the project history. In June of 2010, I was down here and presented a feasibility study to the council. And in that study, we looked at different options for replacing the bridge or possibly repairing the bridge, and looked at costs for each of those options. At that time, the council gave us the direction that they would wanted to replace the bridge with a continuous concrete slab bridge. Then we began working on the preliminary design, and the preliminary design phase included getting all the survey, doing hydraulics, getting a geotechnical investigation, and we submitted for permits from the DNR and the Corps of Engineers, and that has all been done. And then we were going to submit plans to the DOT to get the project in their system. However, before we did that, the project got put on hold in 2011, and of course, you know, the reason it was put on hold was because of funding. Now, the city has received funding for the project, and the project has come back to life now. So I'm down here just to give you an update on where we're at. The current status is we're updating the preliminary plans. We need to resubmit to the Corps of Engineers and the DNR because there's a time limit on their permits. One of the permits goes for 5 years, so we would have been okay on that one. The other one goes for 3 years, and we would have been cutting it pretty close if we need to have the project construction completed before the permit is out of date. And then we also needed to update it because in the preliminary design phase, when we did you guys originally had wanted us to move the sidewalk off the bridge and move it and build a second bridge down on the Lewis Street alignment. And now we understand we're no longer going to do that. So we've moved the sidewalk back onto the bridge, and that required us to also notify the Corps and the DNR that we're doing that. So that's where the current status is. We're in that phase right now. This is just you can't get a whole lot off of here. The main thing from that slide is that we wanted to show that the roadway width is going to be 30 feet, basically, with a 5-foot sidewalk on the north side. There's a water main hung under the sidewalk on the upstream side of the bridge, but I understand that that's probably not going to happen right now, but it's something that can be added, or it can be accommodated on the bridge. The other thing that I wanted to point out about the existing bridge that's changed, this is, there's a lot of stuff going on here, and you don't really need to concern yourself with too much, but the main reason I'm showing this is we were asked to actually do some bank protection on the northeast corner of the bridge near the park. After that was kind of cleared out, I guess, I couldn't believe when I saw I was looking at old pictures with a lot of vegetation on there, and then pictures with no vegetation, and that has really undermined and eroded a lot of that embankment. So we're extending that. The riprap will extend from the bridge up probably about 150 feet upstream along that bank, and this square right here is the foundation for the John Gosch statue. Is it John Gosch? Frank Gosch, I'm sorry. I knew I was going to get that wrong. Frank Gosch statue. And that there's about 5 feet from the corner of that statue to the top of the bank there with the new riprap on there. So we should be able to work around that and get that accomplished. So, anyway, that's where we're at with the existing bridge. Now I'd like to talk, the rest of the project is we're gonna talk about aesthetics tonight, and then you guys can decide whether you wanna do any aesthetics, or if you do wanna do aesthetics, what level you wanna do them at. Then the next step would be to finalize the preliminary design, then go into final design, which could be completed in the, for a winter 2013 or early 2014 letting, probably letting the project in November, December, January. And then construction can begin probably about this time next year. And we were thinking that if we could get them on, get a contractor in the project, they could begin removal of the existing bridge maybe in as early as February or March of next year. And then that will give them, by the time we get into the construction season in April, they can start building and the bridge will already be out of the way. Then hopefully get it done. It should be able, without a problem, be done before fall of next year. Okay, now we'll talk about the aesthetics, and this is, I've got a lot of pictures here, so I'll probably go through them fairly quickly, just kind of show you what you can do with aesthetics. First of all, I wanted to show you a bridge with no aesthetics. It's very similar to this bridge. This is a 3-span continuous concrete slab bridge that was built in Clear Lake quite a while ago, probably 10 or 15 years ago. Your bridge is a 5-span continuous concrete slab. Everything else is basically the same. Yours is just a little bit longer than this one. So basically on this you can see that there's a, just basic barrier rails. This also has a 30-foot roadway. Actually, this might be a little narrower. That might be 28 foot. And then there's a chain link fence and a railing separating the sidewalk from the roadway. This is a view from the sidewalk side. It's a very thin slab, and then in this case, there's 2 piers. Your bridge will have 4 piers. Pretty basic wings. This is a view from the other side, just a concrete parapet rail, and you can see the piers a little better from this side. And then this is a picture of the sidewalk. This is also a 5-foot sidewalk. There's a separation rail with a steel handrail and a chain link fence. So that would be the basic bridge without any aesthetics.
Is that pretty standard as a 5-foot sidewalk as it stands? Is that?
5 foot is actually the minimum. If you wanted to do a trail, or if it were considered a trail, you could not use a 5-foot sidewalk. The minimum would be 8 foot, and the preferred is 10 foot actually. But 5 foot is the minimum. Okay, so now talk about the basic principles of aesthetics, and most of this information comes from a Iowa DOT webpage. They have actually a bridge aesthetics webpage, and I've shown the link on there to that page if you want to go do some more research of your own. Basically, what the DOT is saying is that they've gotten feedback from communities. Communities want the DOT to be proactive when it comes to design. If it's a bridge that's in an area that they think should have aesthetics, they want the DOT to participate in that and take that into account. So what they want the DOT to do is to account for and design that the structures will enhance or blend in with the environment. And one of the comments they have on their website is they say the bridges are expected to last 50 to 75 years, so they're expected to last a lifetime. So isn't it desirable to make them visually attractive? The next couple of slides are a couple of quotes that come off of that page, and I'll just read them to you. In most cases, the replacement of a signature or historic bridge will result in some consideration of design enhancement of the new bridge. The Iowa DOT recognizes that historic bridges have intrinsic value to the communities in which they are situated. So they're saying they realize that part of the money that goes to building bridges can include aesthetics. And then the second quote is, making simple decisions early on can make bridges more attractive. A minor addition to the construction budget can take an everyday bridge and turn it into something unique and special. And just one thing I wanted to point out about the DOT's involvement in aesthetics. If you've been through Des Moines since I-235 has been done, you know that they're more than willing to spend money on upgrading all of their transportation features, not just bridges, but the roadway itself. And so the I-235 is by far the biggest application of bridge aesthetics that Iowa's done. But and I've got lots of pictures of bridges that WHCS has been involved in too, where you can see that it's being used by other communities too. Okay, so one thing when you look at, so how do you come up with the aesthetics for an individual bridge? And what we do is we look at the site and consider things at the site. So I've got a few pictures here. First of all, just the bridge itself. This bridge has been in part of the community since the 1920s. So maybe there's some features of the existing bridge that you'd like to incorporate into the new bridge. So that's one of the things we look at. And here's a couple of examples. The abutments are the ends of the bridge that tie it to the roadway. And there's some features on here that, just it's a very large, massive abutment. A lot of concrete involved in that. The piers are also very massive, and they've got a lot of detail there. Plus, the barrier rail is pretty unique. Or actually, it's not unique for that time period, but they don't build them like that anymore. Some other features near the bridge are the embankment on the east side. It's founded in rock. There's a lot of rock outcroppings on both sides of the bridge, and there's just to show more rock on the south end of the east side of the bridge. I'm not exactly sure what that is, but somebody's put a great deal of effort into building some kind of a structure out of stone and concrete right there at the end of the bridge. Another thing we looked at is there's buildings around the site. This is on south on May Street there. There's this building and a couple other ones that have stone walls. This is the Lewis Street Bridge just south of there. These foundations were built before the other bridge was built. That was when the old truss was in place there that was removed in the late 70s, or middle 70s, I guess. But this is, I think, the east side of the Lewis Street Bridge, and this is the pier out in the middle, and that pier has been around for a long time, and maybe there's some features there that you might want to work into the new bridge. The other place we looked is in Bignell Park. With the new statue, there's obviously some a nice feature there in the park, and maybe you could mimic some of that in the bridge. Just the limestone, I noticed in a couple other parks you have the same type of signage where you use a big stone for that. And then even the shelter in the background, there's cobblestone side that are facing on the shelter. So what kind of features do you look for in the bridge that you might be able to use some of this information? Well, there's basically four things: railing in the fence, concrete form liners, colored concrete sealer, and lighting. And I'll go into each of those separately. Okay, first of all, let's look at the railing in the fence. This is the existing bridge. This is the south rail. It's got basically stone with concrete posts with concrete picket fence type railing in between the posts. On the north side, there's a separation rail between the roadway and the sidewalk, and it's just steel pipes, and then there's a chain link fence on the outside. Oops, I went too fast there. Well, this will be tricky. I don't know if I can get back to that. No, that's not what I wanted to do. Sorry. Well, actually, I don't think, on that slide before, I didn't really have, let's see what I skipped over here.
Probably our favorite picture we just made.
It was, it was just the,
It's in the book, isn't it? Is there should be a picture of it in this book, isn't there?
yes, there is, and that's what I was looking for.
We probably turn the light
Oh,
on
it
back
was
so
just
we
the,
probably see it a little better.
Yeah, it was, you've already seen the pictures. It's the pictures of the standard bridge, and I was gonna do that. I was gonna show you your bridge and then the standard bridge, which just had the, the chain link fence and the pipe railing for the separation rail. And then the next slide was, these are aesthetic type railings that you could use instead of the chain link fence and the pipe railing to separate the bridge, the roadway. These are this is the same bridge in Decorah. On the outside of the sidewalk, they used a parapet, a short parapet with a steel picket rail or picket type fence on top of that. And then on the roadway side, where there's no sidewalk, they actually used form liners to build out of concrete, build that railing out of concrete with form liners and colored sealer on that. These are just more examples of railing. This is a bridge up in Rochester, 3rd Avenue. It has a concrete parapet with a steel handrail on top of it, and they painted it blue. This is a different option where they do not have the parapet down below, but they've got posts with a steel railing in between. This is a bridge in Mason City. This is a sidewalk with a separation rail, just a concrete rail between the road and the sidewalk, and a parapet with a steel fence on top. This is a different bridge in Decorah where they actually used a cable style rail, which gives it a horizontal linear look rather than the vertical